love titles. Just look at, we Filipinos, we love to call ourselves engineer so-and-so, attorney so-and-so, reverend so-and-so. The world of convention does not sit well with mediocrity and genericism. So we want to be unique. We want to be different. We glory in achievements, in trophies, medals, and official citations of merits and outstanding contributions of whatever kind. Small wonder individuals in the world over, or the world over, try with might and main to be known as unique, great, even heroic, and definitely a cut above the rest. An old movie on Mozart entitled Amadeus presents this earthly and worldly tendency of each one of us so well in the person of the envious and devious character of Leopoldo Salieri, who was portrayed as consumed with jealousy over that rambunctious, rambling, and awkward upstart named Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, then the rising star favored by the powers that be on the throne. In his final years, a more mellowed Salieri took to recounting the sad story of acknowledged guilt and remorse over a lifetime wasted by so much jealousy and envy. He declared himself in his memoirs as the patron saint of mediocrity, even as he acknowledged the undeniable brilliance and genius of the man whose achievements he so lusted after and coveted all his life. He craved for fame. He groveled after accomplishment. He pined for glory and the acclaim of people. If I remember that old movie well, Salieri did not get anywhere near getting what he so longed for and was so green with envy for. He gloried in the wrong stuff and hitched his dream to the wrong wagon. His heart, like the hearts of all of us in our unenlightened and unredeemed moments, was filled with lights contrary to God's own. Today, our prayer hits home and hits hard in the hearts and minds of all pusillanimous and selfish people of whatever race and persuasion. We ask God thus, Father, let the light of your truth guide us to your kingdom through a world filled with lights contrary to your own. Christian is the name and the gospel we glory in. May your love make us what you have called us to be. Lights contrary to God's own. Isn't this representative of the times we live in? Isn't this the situation of a world filled with deeply contrasting chiaroscuro tones of sinfulness and grace-filledness? Aren't we living in a world immersed in a reality which the classical Dickensian terms referred to at one and the same time as the best of times and the worst of times? God's lights inundate our world. We live in the best of times. We live in God's time and we are all awash in God's fruitfulness. My word shall not return to me void, but shall do my will, achieving the end for which I sent it. God's lights flood our world. Despite all the problems the world is facing, in spite of all the worries we as a people are now facing on the political and economic fronts, we stand witness to the truth of what we proclaim today. The seed that falls on good ground will yield a fruitful harvest. God's lights fill our world in our hearts. Faith gives us perspective and makes us see things for what they are, compared to what is in store for all of us. Consider that the suffering of this present time are as nothing compared with the glory to be revealed for us. Today's liturgy would not have us dwell on dirges. On the contrary, It makes us rise in celebration of hope, even if we see lights contrary to God's own around us. Lights contrary to God's own. We know them only too well. The graft and corruption, the terrorism, the violence, the hatred between and among peoples that afflict the whole Filipino nation and people much worse than the bubonic plague ever did. The flagrant disregard of not a few for the rule of law, to favor their own selfish ends and dreams, the wanton disregard for the objective moral order, and the consequent rush towards the tyranny of moral relativism, the rampant materialism, individualism, and hedonism that sap the moral strength of a people so taken up by the mad rush for more and more at all cost. All this is enough to make our already weakened hopes to falter. Lights contrary to God's own. They all remind us that the world is in a big mess, but they remind us too that it has always been that way, ever since Adam and Eve learned to disobey God. Even the good Lord knows that the mystery of sin is operative everywhere and at all times. His parable speaks of good seeds falling on good and bad soil alike, of seeds being snuffed out by thorns, of seeds being eaten up by predators from above and below, of seeds sprouting significantly and fruitfully. Lights contrary to God's own. No one of us need look too far down the road to see what type of soil we are. In our weak and unredeemed moments, we could all be or none of the above. A good example is our attention span right here, right now, even as I talk. Some of us are all ears, some of us very much less so. Still others might not be here altogether, steeped in worries, ensnared by anxieties, brought about by the uncertainty of the times. Another example is the attitudes we have imbibed. We could grow hopeless as we face such mounting challenges, or at the very least, we could walk cynical and mistrustful, unable to bring ourselves to do what little we can do, to contribute towards building a more just and peaceful society. It is so tempting to just follow the bandwagon of corruption and injustice, to join them if we cannot beat them, as we always say, to be part of a culture that fosters structural evil on all levels. The image conveyed by today's gospel seems so realistic, so contemporary, and so timely. Large crowds gathered around him. It was so large that Jesus had to take his perch on a boat and pull out a little from shore so he could address them all. In this world of conflicting lights, contrasting teachings, and contradictory statements from people whom many cannot and do not trust anymore, there remains one beacon that stands out for all to look at and get their bearings from. Today, this light speaks in parables. This is the same light referred to by John. All that came to be had life in him, and that life was the light of men, a light that shines in the dark, a light that darkness could not overpower. Our choice is clear. Today, we are called to follow this light, not all other lights contrary to God's own light, but the light of truth. And as our opening prayer states, our desire and our wish from the Lord is simply this: may all who follow him reject what is contrary to the gospel, for Christian is the name, and the gospel we glory in. This is the only title that counts and ultimately matters. And this, my dear friends, is your Kalakbay at Katoto saying, thank you and God bless you.